I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Wednesday, October the 23rd, brought to you in part by Livestock Risk Services. That's Dakota Moss, who offices there in the Oklahoma National Stockyards Exchange building in Oklahoma City, and then all of these agents that work with him, and any of them can help you. They are your LRP specialists, and Dakota wanted me to remind you that if you like these coverage levels, the out front feeder cattle futures and the one that corresponds when you're planning on selling some cattle, they've been up here of late, and if you're comfortable with those coverage levels, you need to get your LRP before Friday, because it's cattle on feed Friday, and with the new rules there, you cannot get your LRP on that Friday. So you need to be thinking about that. Get that done either today or tomorrow, because Friday you won't be able to do it. And we all know how cattle on feed report can jack with your futures market, and may lose your levels there. But just making you aware that you can't write your LRPs on Friday. Need to do it before then, or else you have to wait till Monday. For more information, you can go to livestockriskservices.com. Heifer retention may affect your cattle on feed report. We've only seen slight heifer retention, but mostly last year, and when we went up through spring, we saw that all of our cattle were selling at all-time record highs. Every class was, and we kept saying, well, we haven't seen any heifer retention, and we hadn't. But in the last few months, we have seen some. And so we can't say that anymore. We've seen at your sale barn, especially in the northern plains where those best cattle are, we see fairly significantly more steers coming than heifers. And so they are keeping some heifers back, but it's mostly the light weights. And if that makes a difference on your cattle on feed report, we'll see. But it's mostly been lighter weight calves, or your fancy strings of calves coming in. We also see this at a smaller level last year, but then those heifers ended up showing back up as grass yearling heifers. A lot of them were the ones that the producers had planned on keeping back, but with all-time record high prices, they couldn't resist selling those yearling heifers, and so we ended up not seeing any heifer retention at all. And then with our way up cow prices at all-time record highs too, we saw producers whittling even more on the cow herd. Now we know we have at least the smallest cow herd in 73 years, and it might even be longer than that. But this cattle on feed report could be a game changer. We don't know. It doesn't really show to be making any big waves on it, but we have seen some analysts note that cattle imports had made up maybe a larger percentage of the placed cattle or cattle on feed than they had in the past. But of late, especially in September, we saw cattle imports slow quite a bit. Now maybe they've been bringing them so heavy that they didn't bring them as much here lately, but Mexico was going through a severe drought. And so we saw a lot of cattle coming up from Mexico. We haven't seen many cattle at all coming down from Canada here late. But these cattle on feed numbers, we've got the guesses out. Now this report comes out at Friday at 2 o'clock Central, so we'll see how they correspond. But October 1st inventories, the average, the analyst guess is at 99.7, just a little bit lighter than that. I think it would be much lower than that if we weren't keeping cattle on feed so long and taking them to these extreme weights. I think it would be interesting and probably bearish if we saw the pounds of cattle on feed instead of the head counts, because we've never seen weights like this, and these carcasses are at all-time record highs by more than 20 pounds apiece. So that's how the industry, the packers, have been keeping their beef production up, with cattle imports coming in from outside the United States. And then of course we've been seeing all that brush-fed lean beef coming over, mostly from Brazil and Australia, places like that, and then they're mixing all that fat trim with those and making from some pretty palatable ground beef there with it. But placements in September for the cattle on feed report are set at 95.8. Now, I haven't really thought that we've been running light on cattle through the auctions, but there again, I think the heifer retention might be some of that. Now, your bigger cattle weighing over 6, your yearling cattle, were actually a little bit heavier than what we saw as total of your auction receipts, though. So it's going to be a little bit kind of unclear what we're going to see until that report comes out. Now your marketings in September were up, and they expect them to be at 102.2. So it'll be interesting to see what the cattle on feed report is, whether it's a big mover or not. We haven't seen it really shaking up the market that much the last several months, so hopefully it won't do that again, because I feel like we're setting really good for this time of the fall, and with all these balling calves that have been moving through these sales, still bringing pretty respectable prices, and we haven't seen much of a fall of the market. And perhaps we're going to extend that 10-year cycle out an extra year. Maybe we can blame some of that on COVID, but now we're just now seeing some heifer retention. So maybe, maybe we're going to see all-time record highs broken again on some classes of cattle, if not all, as we move, towards the spring. But look at your board on Tuesday. October live cattle futures up $1.05, and they regained most all of Monday's losses. So we're now on track to be higher again. 188.05 on your October contract for live cattle. December up 130 at 188.12. And then your back months were up 70 cents to up $1.20. So pretty good day's trade there on your live cattle pits. October feeder cattle up 185 at 249.42. November was up 232 at 248.92. So that's pretty impressive for late fall. So it looks like we're going to continue to move through this fall without much of a shakeup in the market. Your back months on feeder cattle were up 57 to up $1.80. Corn jumped back up again. It was down big last week, but it's been gaining this week. But December corn futures were up 7 cents at 416.5. November beans up 10 3/4 at 991 3/4. In Kansas City, hard red winter wheat for December up 4 1/4 cents a bushel at 586.5. Fat cattle trade, of course, it's early in the week. We haven't seen hardly any direct sales negotiated out of your 5-area feeding region yet. Iowa did have 100 sales on Tuesday at 188, so that's the same as last week's market. Haven't seen a hoof trade out of Nebraska, Kansas, or Texas. Well, there was actually a few hooves in Nebraska on Monday, but they were mostly mixed bag cattle, so nothing we call the market off of. But we did see our market maker on Tuesday, your Stockman's livestock market fat cattle auction in Yankton, South Dakota. It's the biggest in the nation, and they had 1,300 fats in overnight, 3,000 for their auction, and the market was $1 to $2 higher for the most part. Conventional fat cattle in Yankton, South Dakota bring from 184 to 189.25, and then your program cattle, your drug-free but non-implanted, and the non-implanted cattle make up the bulk of the sales there, and they sell from 185 to 193.50. So good fat cattle auction there at Yankton, South Dakota. Box beef cutout values were mixed, with choice gaining ground yet again. Choice cuts on Tuesday afternoon up $1.10 at 323.96. Selects were down 141 at 294.80. Your slaughter, we're expecting a bigger slaughter because packers are making money again, or I think they always make money, but it shows on paper that they're in the black, so you would think that they would step up slaughter a little bit, but they really hate to do that. They don't have a whole lot of cattle, backed up in their coffers. So through the first 2 days of this week, just 243,000 estimated cattle slaughter. That's 2,000 less than last week, 9,000 less than the same week a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. Performance Livestock Analytics. With their Performance Beef, that is a software that's as easy to use as your cell phone, and it is designed by cattle producers for cattle producers. It simplifies feeding along with performance and health data recording. For more information on that, check out performancelivestockanalytics.com. Talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DVAuction late in the day on Tuesday after all your sales had pretty much completed. Sitting at 250.51, that was up 30 cents. So it was down a little bit on Monday, up 30 cents. So now we're on the good for this week, and of course, and that's based on an 800-pound cash auction steer. Your latest CME feeder cattle index sitting at 250.65. So we're still selling those cattle going right into the feedlot, very respectively, if not higher. But your calves are selling really well too, and most of them not weaned. Look at your big sales on Tuesday. Ozarks Regional Stockyard in West Plains, Missouri sells 2,400 head through the ring. Another couple of hundred head through their in-house video that they do each week with help from DVAuction. The steer calves, and it was mostly calves, didn't have a lot of yearlings, but steer calves were called uneven. Heifer calves sold from $2 to $6 higher, so a good market there at West Plains. Looking forward to seeing those guys in West Plains on Friday night at Houston, Texas County Cattlemen's meeting there. I'll be giving a presentation. Talk about some individual quotes, and there was a lot of them because we had a lot of good sales on Tuesday, but check out some of these individual quotes. How about Riverton Livestock Auction in Riverton, Wyoming? They sell 52 light steer calves, weighed 362 at $389. Lolly Brothers Livestock Market in Macon, Missouri. They've got a good heifer market there for grass backgrounded heifers, and they sell 72 of them, weighed 723 at $265 on feeder heifers. How about Clay Center Livestock Sales in Clay Center, Kansas? They sell 90 unweaned steer calves, weighed 609 at $296. Whoa, I thought that was pretty impressive, guys. How about Kimball Livestock Exchange in Kimball, South Dakota? About the best quote that I've seen on some big feeding steers here for a while. 241 head of them, weighed 956 and bring 259.35. How about Fredonia Livestock Auction in Fredonia, Kansas? They had about 200 and some head of the Roker Brothers cattle coming off grass near Pawhuska, Oklahoma. 120 of those weighed 773 and bring 270. That's a big time quote. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Tuesday in your Macrocin, no BS top quote for the day, come out of Atkinson Livestock Market in Atkinson, Nebraska. That's old reliable there on the Yellow Brick Road. They sell 122 steers, weighed 847 and bring 269. That's your feeder flash for Wednesday.